not to acknowledge that it's happening. Because I know when I used to have them, if someone says, "Are you having a panic attack?" I wanted to kill them. Well, it's the most awful feeling. So there's the things like that. So it works fine.
Yeah, it really is.
And we have fun.
And actually, in this, we both said this in different times, but truly one of the joys of this collaboration is that, when you get into middle age, a lot of siblings don't talk to each other, and it's been a great joy for us that we are closer now than we've ever been, and we were always pretty close, and I just think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yes. Hello.
Hello. So, I've always been an avid reader, but recently I've started picking up writing.
You started
Pick
what?
up writing.
Thank God she can write because she can't talk.
It's funny in y'all hair.
Yeah.
But I have trouble finding my characters, finding three-dimensional characters. What do you guys do to make your characters feel real?
We write biographies of our characters. So when we started with Zach, I just took notes and we said, well, what color would his hair be? What would he look like? And what would he eat? And what would he do? And so we actually build biographies, and then I pick those out. And some of the details have never come into the books yet. They may at some point. What would have been his favorite movie? Well, they don't ever go to the movies. They're too busy escaping, beasts and madness. So we build biographies. I highly recommend that. My writing students, I tell them to do it all the time. And the other thing is, get beyond just those descriptions. Get to some of the deeper...
A backstory.
Yeah, give them a backstory. Have them think of, does he think a lot about certain things? We've got pubescent boys in our series. And a pubescent girl, and I hated when I read books that didn't acknowledge that you were that things were a bit crazy. And the wonderful thing about our books is, because their imaginations are their superpowers, what happens is, like Em, for example, when she's having sort of a estrogen moment, shall we say, her fears and all her imaginings come alive. So at one point she comes down the stairs into the kitchen in the room. What?
Hello? Hello?
At one point she comes downstairs.
I think it was a telemarketing call.
Oh, good. Glad you took it. At one point she comes down the stairs, and a couple of the Twilight Kid boys are following her down the stairs. Now, I don't see why they're following her down the stairs. She's barely woken up. Clearly, she's been having a dream. And so,
We all do. Everybody does.
we wanted to be honest with the interior lives of our characters, so we put that out there. So when you read this scene, it really is a very funny scene.
And in fact, they wouldn't let us use the names of the actual. We wanted to use the names of the people and the characters from the Twilight movies. And a copyright issue, they wouldn't let us do it. And I was like, really? Really?
So we describe these we pretty much describe, the werewolf and the vampire characters from the Twilight series, so you know exactly who she had been dreaming about. So build a biography.
Yeah. Yes.
Hi.
I had a question in terms of having written 2 memoirs. What was the transition with writing a young adult novel?
It was really just literally me saying, let's write more books. Let's just do it. And we'd always read to, with Claire Turner and the nieces and nephews, we'd always, read stories to them at night, told stories. My father's a big storyteller. The transition just seemed easy because, and this is just being blunt, I'm not going to, as you know, we don't sugarcoat anything. We were on for 13 weeks with my autobiography on the bestsellers list in the Sunday Times. So it seemed a national profession to ride a wave, and who would have thought that the first book that we did together, that we would become best-selling authors. And we had, that was like icing on the cake on the first book. So we thought, let's just go with this. Let's do other things. So then we approached the publishers at that time, Michael O'Mara, and I said, we'd love to do a children's book. Absolutely, bingo, there it was. And that was how the process started.
And I think in terms of the actual writing, it was probably harder because, John lived the life and anything goes, and then I translated into words, but he actually, since I was capturing his voice, I actually took more from the tapes and literally sort of transcribed them. Obviously, I shaped chapters and made it a book. So that was easier for me. When we're working from ideas that we just imagined, that's harder.
It's from scratch.
It's from scratch, and you're making things up, and that is hard work. Writing is not easy, as many of you know who write, but it's also incredibly rewarding. But that was the challenge then, is if you're making this up, how do we try to get the voice of 13-year-olds? You can imagine it's not hard for us. But really, that was actually, it was slower to write, let me say that. It took more work to write it because I wasn't just taking stories and formulating structure. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes. Hi.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi. Well, if you was ever approached, and I asked Captain Jack at his first panel, and I kind of stumped him.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Now, wait a minute. We got to clarify this because we went back and I said, did I understand that question right? Was she asking me who Captain Jack would be if I, because you said you're still young enough, but if there was a younger person that played Captain Jack, who would it be?
Yeah.
Right? And we went away and we started talking about it. And some of the names that we came up with, I'm like, no. Honest to God, we couldn't think of anybody. Not because I'm being selfish about it, but it needs to be somebody, if they're younger, it needs to be somebody, who's the guy who, but they don't really have that kind of sense of humor yet. He's in the show. Is it White Collar?
Yes!
I can see his face, but I can't.
Yeah.
And he's overly gay, isn't he?
Yes.
No offense, I'm sure, but what I would hate to see happen is someone, and this is, don't get me wrong on this, please don't get me wrong and don't misquote me or think I'm being, what is it? No, make me like segregating gays and straights, because I'm not. But Captain Jack, it really needs to be somebody who's so comfortable with their sexuality that they're not afraid to do stuff. Because the thing that bothers me the most is when, no offense, because I know some of the movies are wonderful and I love them, but when straight guys get Academy Awards for playing gay guys, it's really not that hard. It's just not. They make it like it's some big, oh my God, you were so wonderful. You made out with a guy in a tent and you simulated sex. You were Academy Award. No. So that would be who I might think of.
Okay, but that was my last question that you didn't ask.
I did tell you I would answer it.
But I did ask your sister and you, since you're both authors, and I'm also a fanfic author as well. I've been at points where I get stuck when I'm just like at the climax of my story and I don't know where to take it from there.
Probably feels better.
I think we know where it's going to end before we start.
Yeah. But
And that's...
Let her finish.
I'm sorry, I had that pretty good.
But I always wonder, like, how is it that you can find a way to carry on, even though, like, sometimes you may get off track from your original story, and you feel like, oh, that's not where I want to take it all.
When that happens, I let it happen.
Yes.
I trust my imagination, and John then trusts my imagination. And I'll tell you a specific example. The character Solon is a young boy in the Middle Ages, and the book goes back and forth between the Middle Ages and present day. And Solon I won't give a spoiler, but when we first thought about Solon, we needed him to set up the context of the Book of Beasts, which is a mystical book in the series. And we decided he wouldn't last. We were going to kill him off in a nice way.
That was decided. No, that decision was made.
We made it. We just didn't need more characters to manipulate in the book. So I got to the second chapter.
And I got a phone call in the middle of the night. John,
I was really upset.
I can't do it. I was like, oh my God, put Kevin on the phone. No, she goes, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't kill him. I went, what, Kevin? I like my brother-in-law. I went, go kill Kevin. No, I love you, Kevin. I can't kill Solon. I said, why not? Just kill him. He's not real. Throw him off a cliff, but in my head, he's real. I've fallen in love with him. So I sit up in bed and I'm like, Scott, body tonic now. So it did.
Solon did not die.
Did die.
And in fact, in the second book, he plays a very big part, and in the third book, he's almost the main character. Solon is around to stay.
Yep. And then the other thing I was going to say about it, if you go off on those tangents, because even in acting and stuff, we're always told when we do a scene, well, you're not always told, it's what you learn. You start where you finish. If that makes sense? It's the same with a book. You start where you finish. You know everything that's going to happen. So in acting, if you're going to be really emotional at the end of the scene, get yourself to that point of emotion, control before you start, and then do it, and then you will be right there at the end of it, and it will be fantastic. Trust that journey.
And if the tangent doesn't work, that's where your editor comes in and says, this is wonderful. I had a fabulous scene with the Kitten Sisters who live in Raphael Terrace.
I love the Kitten Sisters.
The Kitten Sisters are awesome. They live in Raphael Terrace. For the kids in the audience, there's lots of Easter eggs about art, Raphael Terrace in the book. And the Kitten Sisters had a whole backstory that we loved. Their ancestors were suffragettes, and our editor came back and said, I love the Kitten Sisters, but get them out of there with all that backstory. It's slowing things down. So I've saved all that, and someday we thought we'd just do a short story about the Kitten Sisters.
Why are they called?
The Kitten Sisters. My students actually, now that's become code, and I'll tell them, it's like the Kitten Sisters. It's got to go. And they're much more comfortable cutting something from their own writing because they know I go through it all the time. So, next question.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
First, I wanted to say my wife and I loved getting beach at the airport the other night. And I wanted to know...
It wasn't in the bathroom, was it?
Although you would have liked my wood carving. But... but I did...
Actually, funny story about the bathroom. Yesterday, I was in the bathroom. My security guard was standing, always comes in with me. Because, they give you the security guard, right? But I tried to run away from Rick sometimes. Like, no! I go in the bathroom. This guy walks up to me. Literally, we're standing there, and I'm doing the business, and he's doing the business, and I just went like that. He went... And he was obviously gay, and he went...